Why is Speaker's Corner so important to you?
I think, as you said, it's the jewel in the crown of free speech in Britain and the world, I would say. You know, every Sunday for such a long time, people have been turning up to say what they want, to speak about what they want, to listen to what they want. Way before Twitter existed, way before YouTube, way before even GBNews, people have been doing it. And I think it's such a core, important aspect of our free speech. As I say, globally, I think the entire world looks towards Speaker's Corner.
I mean, one of the wonderful things is you can hear some real maniacs doing this as well.
You certainly can. It's often been described as an open-air asylum.
Yeah.
And you get absolutely every form of nutter, every conspiracy you can imagine. We've had the flat earthers back there today. I've just hot-footed it back from the corner.
Missed that.
And they've been back. They've been away for a while, and we welcome them back.
Where did it all begin? What's the history of this?
So it's a pretty grim, dark history, actually. So it started as the place of execution. So there's what was called the Tyburn Tree, which was a massive three-pronged tripod of a gallows where up to 24 people at a time were hung. And they were given their last opportunity to give a speech. And that tradition grew. It became a spectator sport. So I think that there was a famous highwayman that was hung there at once, and apparently he had 200,000 people watching.
Wow.
They sold tickets at one point to it. And I think when the hanging was finally brought to an end in the 1700s, that tradition of people coming and giving speeches continued.
And have you appeared there yourself in the capacity of a speaker?
I do a bit of everything. Occasionally I'll get up on a ladder, but I'm mainly a heckler. And again, heckling is a hugely important tradition of Speaker's Corner, that people don't just get up on a ladder and say a speech to a silent audience. You know, the whole spirit of heckling is a really important part of the place.
How does the very notion of Speaker's Corner in the modern age work, insofar as we now have hate speech laws, for example? We have public order declarations which effectively silence certain times. I mean, you see fundamentalist evangelical preachers hauled off before the courts because they've offended people. So this culture of offence that we now live in, can Speaker's Corner survive in that culture?
It has to. It must, and we must all make sure that it does. As you know, you said 150 years history since it's had that legal protection. It's often cited in legal law. So the famous Redmond Bate case around around free speech specifically referred to Speaker's Corner, and in that legal conclusion, it said, you know, free speech is not just about the inoffensive. If we don't have the right to be offensive, then we don't have free speech. But it's a battle. Literally a physical battle sometimes, unfortunately.
No, so why is that? So there are some people who now go to Speaker's Corner and attempt to silence some of the speakers. Can you give us some examples of what's been going on?
Well, I mean, there are YouTube videos all over the place. So, you know, just put in Speaker's Corner and you'll soon find something. And in fact, in I'd say the last 2 to 3 years, just before lockdown, and in the last few weeks, actually, we've had an increase in violence of simply people that are attending Speaker's Corner who clearly do not get the basic tenet of free speech.
Yes.
And often challenge them. You know, if you're such a sensitive, thin-skinned individual, why come to the global home of free speech?
You would have assumed that people know what they're getting themselves in for.
You would hope, and actually we've now got some information boards as you enter the corner that clearly detail what it's all about. But as you say, you're correct, there are people that are going there now who are trying to silence through violence, through intimidation, through aggression, through spitting on people, kicking people off ladders, through punching people. We've had a stabbing. We had a stabbing July last year where Hatton Tash, an ex-Muslim Christian preacher, was stabbed, which was a religiously aggravated attempt of murder, and they've never found the culprit.
But surely this all must be on camera and...
The police were sitting in their police car, not yards away from where it happened. And in fact, I've only heard today, after I left the corner, that Hatton Tash was arrested by the police after a massive confrontation.
So are the police there regularly, and do they do their job?
We had a very, very good police officer in the name of Steve Barnes, who was the epitome of what community policing should look like. He got to know the place. He appreciated and understood free speech. He unfortunately took ill health retirement a year ago. Currently, the police sit in their car. They are not interested. They hate the place. This is something I wanted to ask, and the reason I ask this is because again and again we see reports of the police investigating people for speech,
for offensive speech. We saw those police officers standing outside that digital billboard up north where it said being offensive is an offence.
Yes.
Right? So it's now built in, thanks largely, I think, to the College of Policing and the ideological drift of the College of Policing. It's built into the police's training that they should be policing words and making sure people aren't being offensive. That's the antithesis, surely.
And I guess that's the challenge, because I even know when before Steve Barnes retired, he created an induction. He trained his officers that he was handing over the reins to. They are simply not interested in free speech.
But surely if violence is breaking out, they must intervene.
They do, by often taking away the victim. And I believe I've had phone calls since I've been waiting to come on tonight that happened not 3 hours ago today.
So what are the hot topics that are causing this violence?
Some of it is it's all religiously based of one form or
Well, the one
another.
you've described there sounds like religious protesters against an apostate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would say this is one of the things about Speaker's Corner now that has deteriorated in the last few years, that it's become very religiously based.
Right.
When I started going, you had such a diversity of speaker, from politics to vegans to gay rights to the flat earthers, etc., etc. Now it's very, very polarised between born-again evangelical Christians and quite an extreme conservative version of Islam.
You see, that's a problem, isn't it? Because, recently we've had this film, The Lady of Heaven, which was made by Shia Muslims, and we've had groups of Sunni Muslim protesters who have successfully had that film withdrawn from cinemas. I interviewed an imam on this show, and he was quite clearly very much against free speech and freedom of expression, or at least that's the impression that I got. So do we have a strand now of ultra-conservative Muslims who just feel that actually anything offensive to their creed should not be tolerated and should be silenced?
Attending Speaker's Corner, yes. I strongly don't believe that they represent Islam across Britain. Always Speaker's Corner has attracted the extremists from many groups. It has certainly attracted quite a virulent strain of Salafi Sunni Muslims. Anjem Chowdhury and his followers, many of them have come to Speaker's Corner over the years.
Yes.
They are the ones that come to intimidate and to bully and sometimes be violent. We've had a lot of Sunni on Shia violence. Not 5 weeks ago, there was a pack of 6, 7 Sunni Muslims on the back punching a Shia guy.
Really?
Who'd done nothing more than speak openly. And
it's very important. People are concerned about Islamophobia in the country, so I think it's particularly important to address this and to make sure that people are allowed to say whatever they want, because, of course, Shia Muslims should be able to say what they want as well.
Of course, and Muslims come up to me all the time at Speaker's Corner and say, this isn't on, the violence, the aggression. It's not showing our religion very
Exactly,
favourably.
and it's not representative.
And that will be what the Islamophobic people, the people that do have an innate core anger, hate towards that faith, will jump on and use.
Of course, exactly. It's almost like a propaganda gift to them. So what will you be doing to celebrate the 150th anniversary?
So tomorrow is the actual anniversary. So it's commemorating the Parks Regulation Act of 1872. So that was passed on the 27th of June, tomorrow. So basically I've been organising a gathering. So Toby Young of the Free Speech Union is coming along. He'll be speaking to us. And a good crowd of regular speakers from now and in the past. And Steve Barnes, the police officer that I referred to earlier, is coming along as well.
Fantastic.
And what was amazing about him, he commanded so much respect amongst all the communities of Speaker's Corner. Everyone admired him. And as I say, he is what good community policing looks like. And that's what we need in Speaker's Corner.
Just before we go, how can people get involved? Can they turn up?
So they can turn up tomorrow at Speaker's Corner, the northeast corner of Hyde Park, near Marble Arch, from 11 o'clock onwards.